like, subscribe, and comment. That'd be great. Werewolf the Podcast can be found now at all good podcasting sites. This video is sponsored by Plop to Drop, the new app from App Store or Google Play that times the release from your ass to the water of your poop, and from that can work out your digestive health. Go find it. Plop to Drop. Did you ever start a conversation with someone knowing that one of you will probably die by its end? Well, have you ever started a conversation where at the end of it both of you realise that the other has to die to get out of the conversation alive? I've had a lot of conversations of the first type where I sit down with someone knowing that they'll end up dead. That is kind of a common theme that happens in my life. In fact, many times I just see people and realise that they're going to die. Here I'm talking about when you sit across from someone and look in their eyes and you do not know if you will walk away. You only know that to walk away, you have to kill them. Did that ever happen to you? I would say that it's a very rare happening. I mean, this is only one of a few that I've ever had with anyone, and to this day, I've never felt so alive in these moments, trading vocal blows before we strike physical ones. He was a werewolf too. Aye, not many of us in the world. I'm led to believe there's 74, but this was one of them, and he was sitting in front of me and was pretty pissed off at me for some reason or another. Oh, that was it. I had attempted to murder the majority of that werewolf tribe. That's another story in itself. It really had to do with my posit Fenrir, to be honest. My posit is my werewolf soul. The soul once belonged to a wolf back hundreds of years ago, and that soul has been passed on to a man that then could combine with the wolf soul to form a big fuck off wolf or a big fuck off werewolf. If you've listened to other stories, you know about this, but I'm trying to get on top of it again. That person that originally got the soul was the brother of the big boss of the werewolf gang. The brother fell in love with the big boss's wife and could not cope with the woman's rejection. So he fucked off and ran away from the tribe into the world because he thought that would be a better idea. Then the guy died while he was away and passed on his posit to several other folk, eventually getting it to me. The boss werewolf did not believe me that this was how it had all happened. He actually thought that somehow I had stolen Fenrir from his brother, and this is what he blamed me for. So he tried to kill me. I did not appreciate this, as you can imagine, and the saddest thing was that the only woman I ever loved was killed due to this shit thing happening. I mean, I killed her because I didn't want it to be, the thing they could use as a trap for me. I know that seems like a bit of a shit thing to do, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. So I killed her, then went on a murder spree throughout the werewolf tribe to make myself feel, just a little bit better about the whole thing and stuff. I managed to escape after doing a lot of mauling of wolves. As you might have guessed, the tribe tried to find me to be killed by them, and that was okay because they more or less sent dumbasses after me, and I could stop them quite easily. The thing in front of me now was very different, and to be honest, looking into his eyes, I thought I was definitely fucked. I was in a cafe in South London in the Soho area. I had only walked in because my favourite coffee is a flat white, each to their own, and in my mind I have to have a flat white in a cafe that calls itself Flat White. Get it? Dogs were also welcome, which made me even more attracted to the over-hip establishment in some strange way. I mean, if they only knew what was sat at table 7. Would they put a dog bowl down for me? I'm not sure. I also have to admit that they did do a mean flat white. It's very smooth and has a little bit of a burn about the roast, and it hit the spot as I sat and watched the prey, the people, wander by. I was staying at the Sanctum Hotel for a few days. It's owned by Iron Maiden, the only reason I chose it, to be honest, and I ate my way around Soho, both in and out of the restaurants. There was truly a better class of people and prostitutes here, and all were almost worth the high London prices. Anyway, I am sitting here just enjoying a coffee and some overpriced eggs when the door opens and the world changes. A massive, massive motherfucker walks into the cafe with a huge, huge posit behind him. My senses went a bit mental as the other werewolf walked into the cafe, looking more Russian than a Russian thing. Did I mention that he was fucking huge? He scanned the cafe and everyone in the crowd, and everyone in the crowd looked back. I mean, he just oozed charisma and confidence. And did I mention he was fucking huge? His beautiful eyes eventually fell on mine, and he nodded and walked over to the spare chair at my table. At this point, I was frozen. I held my cup to my mouth for an extended period, stunned by his unannounced appearance. The man came over to the chair, nodded again, and sat himself at my table. I just watched him sit and felt his pain as he struggled to get his thighs between the chair and the table because, did I say, he was fucking huge. After some time, he settled, taking off his beanie hat and placing it on the table, and sighing before looking me deep in the eyes while steepling his hands and smiling. Only at this point did I take my cup away from my mouth and place it in the saucer with a click. The crowd around us now returned to their respective worlds and life moved on. I leaned back in my seat and placed both hands on the table. The man just sat there with his steepled fingers and stared at me. It was quite uncomfy, to be honest. He then nodded and wiped his own hand across his top lip. At first I had no idea what he was trying to tell me. Then I realised that I had a frothy moustache and the man was telling me what I had one. So I took a napkin from the table. It's cotton napkin in a cafe. It tells you the quality of the establishment. And I wiped my tash, giving him the nod of thanks for the heads up. After wiping the froth from my lip and being laughed at by Fen, my wolf soul for my definite lack of coolness, I again relaxed back in my seat and smiled while thinking, what the fuck is going on? Why did this man not just come in here and murder me? I smiled and nodded, but he or I said nothing, so after a while I started tapping my fingers on the table rhythmically. Not out of nerves, but out of ADHD. I think you know why I'm here, Will, said the man before me in an English accent. This didn't compute at all. He was obviously more Russian than those stupid dolls that fit in each other and are supposed to be a toy. But how the hell do you play with them? You can unpop them and then pop them back together. Not much of a game, really. I also guess that once you've discovered that there are other dolls inside the one you're holding, you never have the surprise of the shitty Russian dolls again. Well, he looked more Russian than that. I sat and stared, looked at him, then his big wolf posit, then back at him. I knew exactly why he was here, so I did my usual thing at this point and thought it might be quite the time to do my thing of stirring shit. Well, if you want to bring Christ into my life, I have to say, I want to say thanks, but no thanks. He's not really my thing. The Russian man laughed. Well, the Russian English man laughed. No, Will, I am here to try to get you to join no slave religion like Christianity. I am here to kill you. A slave religion, really? This man was a proper serious blokey, and I could tell that he was an intellectual type of blokey too, and that would mean that this was going to be very serious conversation from his side, which obviously meant that I would have to make it not very serious from my point of view. Why? I asked. Why what, Will? Why are you going to kill me? You don't have to, you know. I mean, you look like you could do with having some serious fun. I was heading out to the club night in heaven tonight. You know, drugs, drinking, hot young people with low morals and ethics. You look like you need a night like that, to be honest. You could not kill me, and we could go out on the piss and have a great night out together. Honestly, mate, looking like that, you will be falling over the sexual possibilities for the evening. I mean, if you're worried, I can get my hands on some Viagra or Cialis if you can't, His steepled hands did not hide his lack of mirth, and he gently rubbed his hands together in front of me. You are a funny man, Will, huh? He smiled, meaning that I wasn't amusing him in any way. I got it. It was sarcasm, so I needed to take it as a compliment to annoy him. I am, yeah. Well, I try to be. So that's sorted. Where are you staying, man? I'm at the Sanctum, room 8, he interrupted, trying to cause me to stop and think that this was a veiled threat. I A clever way of causing me some fear. He told me he knew where I was, and that he could come and get me whenever he wanted. And I'm sure you gathered that, though. I hope you don't think that I'm being patronising, but there's some thick folk listening to this. So I thought I'd better explain it for, let's say, certain worldwide markets. Oh, that's cool then. Shall we meet in the bar downstairs? Let us say 7 p.m. We can sink a few vodkas and I've got a bit of blow before we head out. It's Thursday at Heaven, so it's a good night. Porn stars are the thing. Strippers and drag queens are the thing. Oh, man, you'll be a real hit. It will be cool. Sound good to you? He just sat and stared at me now. He was getting properly annoyed, and this was going so well. No, I will need none of these pathetic distractions. I need no drugs. They are a crutch that the weak need to survive. I need no distractions like unwanted fornications. Love is about trust and oneness and creating life within a family unit, he said with obvious conviction. I sat in uncomfortable silence, still as though taking in what he said. I looked around the cafe once more and leaned forward as though only sharing my thoughts with him. It's fucking fun though, isn't it? Drugs and fucking people. I personally like being distracted, and those two things come highly on the list of well-worthy distractions, Sammy whispered. The big man laughed as I leant away. I can see why we need to remove you from our tribe's lists. You are a waste of a precious posit soul, especially one as renowned as the mighty Fenrir. He spoke to Fen as he did this, and Fen looked at me and flashed into my mind. I like him. He understands me better than you do. You're wasted on me, Will. That's what he said. I think he's right that it's time for me to move on and find someone worthwhile. He then laughed and looked back at the big man. Well, he's a dick. Let's kill him for a laugh. Then, surprisingly, the man's posit spoke to us both. This man will kill your vessel, Fen, and then you will learn humility as you walk the world alone and realize that you should be at home with your brothers and sisters who miss you. Fen and I looked at each other and nodded. Seems legit to me, I told him. Shall I just kill myself to make it easier for you or what? I asked him. Fen looked like he was considering my suggestion. In fact, it took him a bit too long to consider this. I was actually feeling a little bit hurt. Fen then looked at the posit across from him that was sat next to this man and considered him for a while. Nah, Will's fun. We have a laugh. The thing I found with the Werewolf Nation is that they were so far up themselves that they frowned upon the things that I love, like, murdering and killing things. They're so fucking boring with their moral principles and shit. Willie's fun, so fuck you and yours. I'd rather be here in the now and fuck around with Will than go back to you bunch of self-obsessed, no fun, pointless, principled wags. Sorry. The man in his seat sighed. He looked back at the two of us and shook his head with pity. Well, I am sorry, Fen, but this man has done things we cannot accept. He shows himself in the wild, and he does not care whether the world knows about us or not. This is a shame, because we must keep the family below the radar. He has also killed many members of the clan, for which he has to dearly pay. So I am sorry that you feel like that, but Will must die. Fair enough, replied Fen and laughed. I don't think it's going to be that straightforward, to be honest, matey. At this point, I nodded and agreed. You see, I said, I've no morals, no ethical code that I have to live by. I will kill, murder, cheat, hurt, abuse, and be a right royal cunt to win. So I leave it in your hands. You see, I would not mind for a moment if you and I actually had a fight in here with all these lovely humans and not care about the fact that we would be seen. We would do a lot of collateral damage, as they say. So I am afraid your morals and ethics somewhat hamstring you, and that you have to hide yourself away all the time. So let's go, I yelled, standing up and throwing the chair behind me with my straightening legs and knocked stuff all over the table. The big man looked at me quite sadly in a somewhat condescending manner. Not now, Will. I will find you in a much more discreet area at a better time, and we will settle this as it needs to be done. You will die, and I will free Fen to find another, and hopefully he will choose better next time. My own son is looking for a posit, and one like Fen would be a perfect fit. The posh cafe had never experienced anything like this, and the cool hipster waiters and waitresses were still, in stunned silence as they were trying to work out what was going on and how they should react in a cool hipster manner. It always gets me that in the past, if someone had a neck tattoo, they were terrifying. These days, they serve coffee and are wimps. I started picking up the flots from the scene, and I gathered my seat and sat down, smiling at the cafe in general. Sorry, I have extreme Tourette's that sometimes I cannot control. I knew these ultra woke folk would want to show their acceptance of this issue. My physical tics can sometimes be frightening for others. Luckily, my partner here, I pointed at the big man, is so lovely that he looks after me nicely. I love him so deeply. He will pay for any broken stuff that I have created. Without him in my life, I would be in such an awful place. I started false snivelling in front of the crowd. The big man sat looking at me, resting his head in his hands as I continued to do this. The crowd were now won over as they started to support this strong gay man and his partner struggling through this together, a newly modern and wonderful trope for the woke and hip to support. I stood up again. I know this is churlish and emotional for me to request, but can I ask you to give him a round of applause? He can never be thanked enough. Can we just give him a round of applause? I then started clapping, which the cafe patrons began to follow. Firstly, a little uncomfortably, and then they added cheers and their voices as I wiped the tears from my eyes. Honestly, it was super lovely and super sickly. People came over and hugged me and tried to hug him. It was beautiful. The gigantic man slowly stood up, his eyes never leaving mine, and smiling. He had to speak over the noise of the applause. You are a strange one, Will. I will see you around. He turned and left his posit. It dropped in behind him. People patted him on the back as he left. I kept the applause going for as long as I could, and people came over and shook my hand. One lady wanted a selfie with me. I now sat and continued my smiling. This was going to be so much fun. Let's see where this next adventure goes.